my name is Karol Muciek. Together with Ali Habib, we're going to talk about the Sustainable Resource Manager. It's a tool we built in Essent, and we're very proud about it, and we want to present it to you. So imagine it's 2035, our world transformed by the Green Revolution. Technology infrastructures, they're no longer just functional, they're vital components of our ecosystem. All these data centers, they pulse with the energy of solar, wind, and geothermal power, operating in harmony with our nature. They pulse with life and not only supporting our data needs, but also the needs and the health of our planet. So who would like to be part of the sustainable future? Okay, so most of you said yes, but what year do we have today? It's 2024. We're still on the journey towards all of these ambitious goals. But every great journey starts from a single innovative step. So let me go to the present. Let me introduce Alex. She's a Chief Operational Officer of a few Bytes Solutions. So in today's competitive market, Alex's primary objective is to optimize enterprise performance. So as we delve into the dynamics of a few bytes, let's focus on the backbone of their operations, infrastructure. So before moving to cloud, a few Bytes Solutions were used on premise. The cost was very predictable. They were ordering infrastructure, installing that, and they were in full control of their costs. But then they decided to move to the cloud. So let's focus on the blue line first. We can see that cloud costs are going up every single month. There is nothing stopping them from innovating faster. At the same time, we can see the purple line. This is showing us their growing enterprise performance. They're able to scale very quickly, they're agile, and because of that, they can address the immediate market needs and therefore achieve a lot better results. But then in June, we can see that the costs have gone up exponentially, and because of that, they decreased the enterprise performance because the additional costs, they started to have a negative impact on their bottom line. So what this tells us, the cloud gives us exceptional scalability, but at the same time, we also need to be mindful of those costs because then the cloud costs can also overshadow our enterprise performance. Also, our CIO got new sustainability targets. Has anyone heard about Scope 1 and 2 and 3 carbon emissions? Yeah, like expected. So Scope 1 are emissions from assets that are controlled and managed by the company, for example, company vehicles. Scope 2 are the emissions that are generated from the purchased energy that's used by the company. And Scope 3 come from the assets and resources that are not controlled by the company, owned by the company, but they are still linked to the company operations, such as a public cloud provider. So our CIO has multiple challenges: accelerating cloud costs, de-accelerating enterprise performance, and new sustainability targets. So what shall our CIO do now? To be absolutely honest with you, I have no idea. But I can tell you what we did in a similar situation in Essent. Over to you, Ali.
Thank you. So within Essent, we have almost 100 accounts in AWS. So to get more insights about what we have, what our cost is, what our consuming of CO2 and so on. So start with visibility using AWS tool like cost insights dashboard. So it gives us insights, okay, what we consume, what we can save and so on. Then we start about resource optimization. What is our saving plans? What resources we can optimize based on these two. Moving forward, we start iterating, okay, now we have some more visibility, we have some plans, action to take. So we start seeing some benefits of what we're doing. So we move forward for discount for commitment. So we see a lot of our what we're doing. Then we go further to our landscape, which technology we use. We commit to use native technology like cloud native approaches, serverless, and so on. So we start also in level of software. But this wasn't enough actually, because in our landscape, we don't only have EC2 and RDS, we have more like SageMaker, big databases, and clusters like EKS and also Fargate. All of this is up and running 24/7, given that most of our teams in Netherlands. So, and it is scattered between dev, production. And we have an aspiration to manage our cloud costs. So we agree on our organizations that we need to commit to our cost optimization and also sustainability. So our steps pay it forward, but still we didn't reach our goal. So to do this, we think, okay, what about simple solution? Let's close everything after our working hour. But this wasn't enough using AWS scheduler, because after we speaking to stakeholders, we faced a few things. First thing was flexibility. Each team needs to be in control of its resources. Up and running depends on its time, its testing environment, and so on. Also, each team needs to have control about his assets. So, for example, team X needs control over its resources. Also, we don't need to add more complexity, no more applications in our landscape. We need to use the application in hand, so we need to integrate with the application. And also, as I mentioned later, we don't have only EC2 and RDS. We have more resources. And given all of this, we need also a measurement, the impact, what our results. Given this, we decided to build sustainable resource management. As you can see, the entry point is Slack, which is the main channel of communication with our teams. So the developer can easily register his team and register a certain app. Certain app can consist of different AWS assets like RDS, EC2, even SageMaker, and so on. And with simple command like this in your Slack, you can register your cloud. Then you get a nice tag. You can use it to start tagging your resource either via IAC or console infrastructure. After this, you can easily start, stop, schedule, also via Slack. So all of this start resources and to schedule your data. This is a little bit zoom in on our structure. As you can see, we use tools like Amazon resources like Amazon API Gateway, that it is sent to SQS, which is trigger a series of lambdas and starting the workflow and step function. And all of this is back to DynamoDB for history and building our Amazon QuickSight dashboard. As you can see, what do you think about the common factor between all the resources in the screen? All of this is, so all of them is serverless and follows the cloud native architect, scalability, availability, and serverless. Not only this is example of our dashboard in QuickSight. As you can see visibility, how many team register, how many resources downtime, and also how far you saved. Not only this, but you can see the offline trend of your teams and resources. And as you can see during the time how this. Talking more about the adoption in our landscape, I will return the talk to Karol.
About something really important in this whole project, the adoption of SRM. So initially when I asked how many of you would like to be part of the sustainable future, many of you said yes. Many of you were enthusiastic, and we got the same response from developers from Essent. So we want to use this tool, great. So what happened when we actually released it? We had a single team that registered their team, registered applications, but they didn't use it. They didn't start or stop, they didn't do anything. So we went to them and asked them, guys, it seemed like you were enthusiastic about it, other teams were as well. So what happened? Priorities, workloads, we really want to use it, but we just didn't have enough time. Okay, so with a few reminders, we actually went into a pretty good start. So in week 1, we've managed to take some resources offline for about 100 hours. Week 2, even better. Week 3, slightly less. But all looking good. But then things went south. So you can see from week 4, 5, 6, there is a downward trend. So we were a bit shocked about this, but we went back and we wanted to find out why this happened. So the teams told us that they had a simple explanation. They were forgetting to use the tool. So why they were forgetting to use the tool? They all want to be sustainable. This is all really important, but why? So I don't have an answer for this question, but I do have some clues. So according to a recent study on forming habits, it took a few weeks for healthcare workers to build a habit of washing hands. So when you think about software engineers with all the user stories, the programming languages, the tasks that they do, it probably can take as long or even longer to actually add a new habit to their daily life. In another study, 370 hotel guests were asked different questions to understand their energy use profile. Out of that group, only 21% were motivated towards saving energy during their stay. Everyone else was indifferent or not motivated at all. So the recommendation from the study was to introduce smart incentives, but also to educate on the importance of energy saving. So with some anecdotes and insights, we focused on the solutions. So we added the scheduling. And this is interesting because initially our teams told us they don't need it. They want full flexibility. When I start, I want to start it. When I finish work, I want to stop it. But this, to some extent, addresses forgetfulness. But this pattern, while worked for some teams, it didn't work for everyone because we had a fixed start time and we have an engineer that starts at 6 a.m. We have one that starts at 11. They start at various times. Also, we do have some resources that don't have to be around every day on Monday to Friday. So we can do some testing Monday to Tuesday, but then next week, maybe we don't need to use this tool. So we actually applied a different pattern. So in this one, we consciously start an application every single time we need to use it. And this is specifically relevant for non-production environments. And then we have a stop schedule every evening. So we're addressing forgetfulness, and we're also being very flexible to the start time. And we're increasing the opportunity for saving the costs and also lowering CO2. But we didn't feel that's enough. We still have a large group of people that are not very incentivized to do anything. They just feel indifferent. So with SRM, we can understand what's the cost that we saved. We can take a percentage of that, and we can actually allow the team to select how they want to spend that money. So they can spend it on planting trees, funding tech events that they want to attend, or supplementing the budgets for social activities. We also started experimenting with educating people on the importance of energy saving. So with Customer Carbon Footprint tool from AWS, we can understand how much CO2 we're generating per AWS account. So with this information, we can actually connect it to the costs. So you can see the cost of EC2, and underneath you can see the corresponding metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So if we're able to save about $2,000 with SRM, we can convert that into, we can calculate how much CO2 is that saved. So because that's a very small number, we actually converted to kilograms of CO2. And then we also wanted to convert this to something more meaningful, because what is half a kilogram of CO2? Not many people actually know this. So with a metric like this, we're just making it a little bit more kind of clear of, you know, you've achieved this, you've been able to optimize some of the applications they use. This is how many miles you saved driven by an average car. So this is not perfect. All of this data needs to become more granular. We rely on AWS to provide us this, but as it becomes better, obviously it will give us a more granular impact. And we also felt it's good to show this to motivate various people that are, they're not early adopters. So I just have a very, just on my last slide, I just have a lessons learned message that we kind of learned from this. So ultimately, this initiative wasn't about the technology or tools. It was about building a culture of accepting new habits and accepting new ideas. So what we observed, it was good to focus on the early adopters, those people that really want to give you feedback from the start, because they will be your biggest supporters. And over time, you should focus on those that don't feel very closely attached to your idea initially. And you can do it through offering smart incentives to widen the adoption. Yep, so let's together work to build a greener and more sustainable future. Thank you.
Yes, there we go. Instead of having a chocolate each day, you get 2 programming exercises each day. 2 little puzzles that you can try and solve. It's extremely well made. So if you're in any way interested, try and look it up. Try to do one of the first puzzles of a year. It's very nicely done. It has a very neat story. It introduces a bit of science into it, a bit of history into it. If you go look it up on Reddit, you see a lot of communities revolving around it with memes and stuff like that. But there's another nice thing going on here. Because you get new challenges each day, there's a bit of a time box there. So it's time limited in some sort of way, if you want to compete at least. Furthermore, it lets you choose your own level. You're only supposed to give the answer to the question, not how you're going to produce that answer. So people use it as a competition. There's a global leaderboards. There's no way you're going to get on it. Believe me, those people that go for the leaderboard, they're insane. They solve the basic questions within a minute. I'm still reading. But people also use it as a playground for new technology or learning new things. I started working on Kotlin using Advent of Code. Some people also use it to show that they can abuse old technology or use technology in different ways. Some people implemented programs in Minecraft or using auto hotkey macros to solve problems. So it allows you to set your own metrics. And it's a good thing. Like for me, when I started doing Kotlin and I was able to solve problems, it feels like this, right? You feel good, you feel empowered. And because I was trying to learn, I went to Reddit and was like, okay, what did other people do? And then suddenly I felt like this little kid. Because what they produced was way better. It was more readable, it was more maintainable. But the good thing is, I could improve as a result. I was able to improve my knowledge in Kotlin and just, learn a lot. And then when I went to interview at ING, they were switching to Kotlin for certain things as well. And we had a nice discussion about, well, what is Kotlin actually? What are some of the advantages compared to Java and stuff like that, and was able to participate and answer some of these questions because I participated in with Kotlin. So, once again, I think we should do more things like this. Not only because you learn, but also because you get to experiment with others, right? I love Advent of Code, so I mentioned it to friends. A lot of those friends also tried it. Some of them loved it. And we started to have discussion about how they solved their problems, what problems they ran into. And I also see this happening at places where I've worked. You see that if you mention it, people get interested, they try it, and you get communities that, within the company that want to try and help each other, that want to see how people solve the problems. You start to make familiar bonds with your colleagues. Suddenly the memes channel is being filled with all kinds of memes about Advent of Code. So it's not only about being able to learn, but also a bit about company culture, about engineering culture that some companies might want to engage and might want to create. And this leads me to the next point. Organizing one is also a very interesting and worthwhile experience because you need to look back into the mirror. Normally when you're programming, you're going from a problem that you're having to a solution. Now often, while creating these problems, you're working from a solution to create a problem. It's a sort of reversal, and that you need to change your mindset for it. You need to wonder what pitfalls you will be laying to the participants. And you need to try and think, what kind of problem am I actually creating here? Is it an analytical problem? Is it a logical problem? Is it a very programming heavy problem or rather a math problem that people need to worry about? So this also needs you. So you also need to be very careful about your participants, right? Different backgrounds have different strengths, and you need to play to that, or maybe abuse that a bit. So let's try to get you started. As I said before, I organized programming competitions when I was a student, and these were question compiles. And the basic idea is we have one evening, so it's very nicely time boxed. We have several assignments during the evening, and if your code doesn't work, doesn't compile, produces the wrong output, it suggested you drink. So at the end of the evening, we had a bunch of drunk programmers. We're having a lot of fun doing silly puzzles, but they often enjoyed it, and most also learned from it. So when you're talking about problems, when you're talking about puzzles, you're talking about problems, and the problem creation is a very interesting part of it. You can take a lot of inspiration from other competitions like this. Crash Compile is quite famous, so if you look up the Crash Compile online, you see a lot of exercises. You can look for exercises in Project Euler, or maybe on Wikipedia in terms of math problems or sequences, or maybe famous algorithms that you can then use to create a problem out of it. Next to that, I also want to very much impart on you to personalize it. If you create a personal link by using team names or famous people within the company, or funny jokes that are running jokes within your company, it will create that extra link, that extra bit of motivation for the people to participate and to enjoy the actual exercises. And then lastly, those problem statements, they need to be precise, but you don't want to give away too much. It's like a maze that you need to create. You don't want a single straight line, but you also don't want it to be impossible. And you can actually try and measure this by asking some friends or colleagues, like, hey, can you try and read this? And what are your thoughts when reading this? Maybe ask them to try and complete it. So that way you can also time how long it takes for them to complete it, and you get a sort of measurement to actually, you know, make a fun evening out of it without being stuck on a single puzzle. While creating these problems, you also need to keep in mind that it's not always possible to give a lot of data. Once, a while ago, I was participating in a Crash Compile for physicists, and they gave a lot of data in the form of images that were bitmaps. Now, MATLAB has a very nice function to read that data immediately, and for them it was very easy to use. And I was there using Java. At the end of the evening, I had a perfectly working bitmap reader from images, but this is not something that I was hoping to do that evening. So keep your participants in mind while you're creating your problems. And lastly, once you're actually having the event, make sure that you have all the solutions already for the exercises that you're going to put in. Because once I didn't. So I was basically doing the Crash Compile myself with half an hour head start from the normal participants. And we didn't know, but chances are, if you have a horde of people, there's at least one engineer that's better than you. So they will be outracing you. So make sure you have all the solutions there before you actually do the competition. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Welcome everyone to my presentation about public speaking. Today I wanted to tell you a bit about my story of how I went from not being social at all to voluntarily go on the stage. So I'll first hopefully tell you in 15 minutes. I took a bit longer when I was preparing, like 20, but I hope to keep it in 15 minutes. I'll first tell you how it was, to give a bit of an image. So I was a very, very shy child. I had a really hard time making friends, and in primary school this wasn't really a problem. But when I went to high school, all my friends didn't go to the same high school, and I had to make new friends. And this was really hard for me, and actually for a long time I didn't have a lot of friends. And the first 3 years of high school I also got bullied quite a lot. And because I was bullied so much, I started to be very conscious about what I was saying, because I felt like every time that I spoke, that people were going to make fun of me or going to judge what I was saying. So I did two things. One thing was I started to say as little as possible. So I tried to avoid talking in class, tried to avoid talking to people or coming in social events where I had to speak. And the other thing I did is I lowered my voice as much as possible, so that if I said something and it was something stupid or something I regretted, that I could say, oh, you didn't hear me correctly. I meant this and this. So, and another benefit at that time, that I experienced, was that in class people didn't, or teachers didn't ask me questions. So I was sitting at the back of the class, and eventually, because of the teachers not hearing me, they stopped asking me questions, so that I didn't have to speak. Of course, I also avoided giving presentations. It was actually one of my biggest fears. When I knew I had to give a presentation at the end of the school year, I already started having nightmares at the beginning of the school year. It was safe to say that I developed a kind of social anxiety. And my strategy of talking as little and as low as possible was quite successful. Because after 5 years, a guy in my class asked me something. He was sitting behind me and he asked me something and I answered. And after I answered, he looked at me quite funny. And I was looking at him and I was like, what is it? What's up? And he said, I've been in class with you for 5 years and now I finally know what your voice sounds like. So, yeah, that's quite heavy, right? And then I first asked him, like, are you serious? I mean, it's not possible. Yeah, I've been here for 5 years. But he said, I always heard you mumbling something and I heard some voices, but I never actually heard you say full sentences because, well, my strategy was very good. After that, when I was done with high school, I started studying social work. And for 3 days a week, we had communication classes, where I had to sit in front of the class, and also my other fellow students also had to do that, but we had to sit in front of the class and have conversations as if I was a social worker. And that also was recorded, and we had to view those recordings afterwards, and we had to learn from it. And that actually learned me to be more comfortable with how I look like, but still didn't make me very confident on the stage. And after 1 year of studying social work, I went to Erasmus University and I started studying psychology. And at the beginning of the study of psychology, they had something called presentation week. And at that point, I was doubting to change studies because I still hated presentations. But a friend of mine said, well, if you want to be a psychologist, you have to talk to people and you have to give presentations, so just go. And he was right. So I went, and there I learned something funny already at the first lesson of that week. And that is, what do people fear the most? Well, as you might guess, death is the first. But the second was public speaking. And at that moment I learned I wasn't the only one that was so terribly afraid of speaking. And I asked Copilot again, like, is this still true? And he said, yeah, it's actually also public speaking is for some people a worse fear than death itself. So yeah, that was kind of confronting, and that kind of changed my whole perception on how I was viewing public speaking in general. And in that week, what helped me a lot is that we had to give a presentation. We couldn't prepare. We just came in class and we heard on the spot what we were going to have to present about. And this could be like, okay, give a presentation of 5 minutes about your favorite hobby. And it was recorded. And we went home and we had to watch the recording and we had to write out what we liked about our presentation and what we thought could use some improvement. So of course my list of improvements was this big. And my list of what went well was maybe 1 or 2 lines because I had to fill something in. But one thing I, for example, wrote down, I had to avoid silence. Because in a presentation, if I forgot a line or I forgot a word, I was completely panicking. And most of the time when I panicked, which was almost every time, I forgot what I was going to say, and I forgot my whole presentation. I got a blackout, and everything went bad. But the next day, when we got to class, we also viewed the presentation, the recording, and then before I got to say what I thought about it, the class first had to respond what they think about it. And yeah, this really changed how I viewed myself, because I thought I had to avoid silence. I had to keep talking. I had to keep entertaining. And they said, oh, it was really nice to have a break sometime. And these things started to pile up. And then after that week, I was way more confident about how I was on stage. And well, I wrote a couple of things that I learned from that moment on. I learned a lot of things. I went to courses. I went to a lot of stages. The biggest crowd I have stand in front of is 250 people. So I grew a lot. And I just wanted to give you some tips on what I learned along the way. Maybe it will help you. The first thing that I learned was get out of your head. So at first I was so focused on how people would judge me. I was focused on how I would look like. Is my voice is weird. I'm doing weird things. I'm maybe like I was always playing with a ring. I'm doing all kinds of weird things, and I was focused on me. But that is not important. When you have to give a presentation or you want to talk to someone, you have to focus on what you want to talk about, and you have to focus on your audience. What do you want to deliver? What message do you want to deliver, and how are you going to deliver it? And the next thing is when you want to be a little bit more confident with public speaking in general, is know what you're talking about. You don't have to be the all-round expert on a subject, but you have to be so confident in a way that, for example, if you go to a friend and he asks about your vacation, you just went on a vacation, you just started talking. It's natural. Because it's something that you know what you did on vacation, and you don't have to think about how you're going to structure it. That level of confidence, that is what I like to bring in a presentation. That even if my computer falls, is dead, the battery is dead, my presentation fails, whatever happens, that I know what I want to talk about. And that is the level of confidence that helps you to be on a stage. Another thing, and that's confidence in general, the way you present, the way you let people perceive how you feel, if that makes sense, is very important. Because if you go on a stage and if I'm standing like this and I'm not trying to look anybody in the eye, you are also going to feel uncomfortable. But if I stand here like I know what I'm talking about, even if I say something wrong and I can admit it, I have the confidence to admit it, that already gives you a way stronger presentation than if you are perceived as insecure. So even if you're insecure, because I also get nervous still for presentations, I still try to stand as strong as possible so that I can at least make it perceived like I'm not nervous. And lastly, I wanted to also include this tip, because even though if you are speaking a lot of times or if you have never spoken at all, try to record yourself and then watch it later and ask honest feedback from others. Because if you only look at it yourself and you're only staying in your own bubble, then you don't get the change that I had, for example. Because for me, the recording and watching afterwards and asking honest feedback of others really helped me to get over my fear and to be more comfortable with how I look, how I present, and how I feel on the stage. But these are the 4 tips. But on top of that, one thing I want to make clear is that all the tips in the world for presenting and public speaking won't help you if you don't do the following. And that is, you must be comfortable with yourself before you can be comfortable around others. Because for me, my fear of public speaking and presenting was mainly based on a fear of rejection. Because I was bullied that much in high school, I was constantly worrying about what others would think of me. So when I forgot a word or forgot a sentence, I was constantly thinking, oh no, they're going to think I'm stupid. They're going to think I'm bad at presenting, even for forgetting just a word, which most people wouldn't notice. So if you have a giant fear of presenting, start by looking why you are scared of presenting and why you are scared of public speaking. And with that, I want to finish my presentation and thank you for your attention.